this is actually ridiculous. What? What's up? So, like, I just deleted a bunch of stuff on my phone last week, and it's saying I'm low on storage. Again, like, what am I supposed to do here? Oh, buy a new phone. LOL. What? Why would I do that? Because you're a victim. What are you talking about? Please explain, please. Planned obsolescence. Some people know it well, some people don't know it, and I'm here to explain to the people who don't. Hey, I'm Cam Hayden, and today we are going to talk about planned obsolescence. As always, I'm a new channel, and every like, comment, and subscription goes a long way. So I want to break down this video about planned obsolescence into three-ish parts, starting with part one. What is planned obsolescence? So by definition, planned obsolescence is a policy of producing consumer goods that rapidly become obsolete and so require replacing, achieved by frequent changes in design, termination of the supply of spare parts, and the use of non-durable materials. I'll break it down further for you so it makes more sense. Planned obsolescence is, in short, the reason why your grandma's toaster from 1965 is still working, but your brand new toaster that you bought 2 years ago isn't. Cheap parts with cheaper designs to make you spend more on something you should only really ever have to buy once. But hey, this is a part of the innovation that capitalism drives so much. We should probably talk about the history involved here. So very typically, you'll see the story of how planned obsolescence spread via the Phoebus cartel, which I'll definitely get into, but for now, I want to talk about its origins in America. The history of planned obsolescence dates back to 1920s when General Motors president Alfred P. Sloan devised a strategy to compete with the rival auto companies. Henry Ford's release of the Model T and goal to flood the United States with it, which was progressively improved so that new customers could have access to a better version. Sloan wanted those who already owned a GM car to exchange it for the latest model when the previous one still worked, simply because they felt a certain dissatisfaction with past models compared with the new ones. Sloan applied to his cars the concept of the annual model. Sound familiar? However, the initial version didn't focus on low durability. GM's president used the term dynamic obsolescence since he didn't want the consumers themselves to see their cars as obsolete compared to new models, but just replace it, even if they didn't need to. This implementation would go on to be better known as manufactured obsolescence. Now, for the second part that honestly feels a bit more sinister, let's go back in time here for a moment to Geneva, Switzerland in 1924, close to Christmas. Here, every major manufacturer of light bulbs, Philips, GE, Tokyo Electric, Associated Electric, and more met with a plan. They wanted to increase their profits and all had to come to an agreement, one that would impact the world for years to come. The group named themselves the Phoebus cartel after the Greek god of light. Every one of the companies noticed that each year their sales were declining. So to compensate for this, they agreed to lower the life cycle of the light bulb to just 1,000 hours. To ensure the idea stayed in use, light bulbs of each company would be tested, and if a company failed to meet the prescribed life cycle, they would be fined accordingly. The cartel didn't last very long, as some companies didn't follow the rules, and also, well, the overarching threat of World War II kind of ruined it there in the end. Let's focus on the next piece of this, though. Why do we use planned obsolescence? It's obviously for money, but you know. So at the very base of this, it's pretty simple. We are doing planned obsolescence in an effort to create more revenue. Like, it's pretty much solely profit focused, but there is another reason the system in which we operate based on as a nation is focused on profit itself. Capitalism, in its nature, promotes the idea of making the most profit in a way that makes it seem like we live on an infinite world. I mean, the more durable, long lasting, and convenient a product is, the less motive people will have to buy it, which means less profit. Less profit means less hours at work and less money circulating within the economy. And truthfully, capitalism being so profit focused doesn't lend itself to a sustainable society that needs less. There aren't any social programs that stand to aid the average citizen who no longer has to go out and make something like light bulbs, which is arguably why we don't have more fully automated businesses. That's a topic for a different video, though. Back to the topic at hand. We keep planned obsolescence because of the economic system we live under. Knowing all of this, we should talk about the effects it has on our planet. So that's why the next chapter is the effects of planned obsolescence. They're pretty bad. Globally, it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. But I'll start with one of the more prominent court cases that led to a $500 million lawsuit that has not been processed yet. Everyone's favorite blue tech sending company, Apple, came forward after years of trial, denial, and diversion to telling us that they had in fact been throttling the battery within each iPhone with updates to encourage customers to buy the newer, more shiny iPhones as they rolled out. Currently, like I said, the lawsuit has yet to be settled thanks to Apple's delays. And if you think you can still get the money, you can't. The deadline was in like 2020. Thanks to practices like this, the average American gets a new phone after about 18 months. This, in effect, results in between 100 to 120 million phones being discarded every year. The US alone produces 6.9 million metric tons of electronic waste per year. Globally, we produce around 53.6 million metric tons of e waste, according to the WHO, the equivalent of throwing away about 1,000 laptops a second. Only about 17.4% of that is recycled properly. This waste destroys soil and can lead to contaminated groundwater in many cases. That, though, is just in terms of electronic waste. When we look at places like the fashion industry, which has produced an estimated amount of 92 million metric tons of waste a year, it, it starts to pile up. This leads us to looking at the construction industry, where we have weaker and weaker houses, longevity of the American household, our American infrastructure, and circulate around the idea that, like within the fashion industry, within the electronic industry, within all of these other industries, to produce these products, we need to whittle down so much of our planet. We whittle down so much of our planet. We use so much water. In the fashion industry alone, there's gallons of water used. The more I talk about this, the more upsetting it is, because it's used in medical practices, food practices. We have food safety laws that kind of allow us to eat a certain amount of wood chips and grain and sand. Now we're just talking about the United States, kind of just like, whoa, every single step of the way is kind of just trying to kill us, maybe a little bit. Okay, so essentially, there are a lot of very harsh and active impacts on the environment when it comes to planned obsolescence. And that's largely why I'm making this video, to bring attention to such a major issue in our current world. Now, I'm sure with all the doom and gloom of this new information, or just a harrowing reminder, you are left with the question, so then what do we do? It can seem pretty hopeless, but there is hope. Now, I personally believe that personal responsibility on a systemic issue can only ever do so much, but I can't understand people wanting more of an answer than just voting for people locally and nationally who have real tangible plans to reduce the effects of planned obsolescence. So what can you do? Well, here's a pretty straightforward list that can help, not too complicated. Number one, properly dispose of your older electronics and clothes. When looking these things up, it's pretty easy to see that nobody's donating clothes. So donate your clothes to local nonprofits that supply low income families instead of just throwing them away. and or selling them. I know a lot of people want to sell them. I understand that the economy is in the place that it is. It's rational. With the statistic of only 17% of the things that we are producing as waste being properly recycled, it's pretty obvious to say that we should be taking our electronics and old batteries, this includes old batteries, to proper disposal places so that things can be properly disposed of. And we can reduce the harm that we are doing on the planet with the waste we are producing. Number two, keep and refurbish your old electronics. You don't need a new phone every year. It's kind of surprising, but you don't. You don't need a new laptop every year. Your TV from last year is fine. That new blender is unnecessary. I think I'm making my point clear here. Just keep your old things, and only buy when you really, really need to. Three, I'm sorry, but yes, predictably, you have to vote. Because we operate under the economic system of capitalism without planned obsolescence, the economy would stagnate and we would see a lot of harm to the lower and middle class. As a result, to change it, we have to remove the systems in place that uphold it. So while these things may seem pretty minimal in combination, they can do a world of good to the effects produced by planned obsolescence. So, as always, thank you for listening. Like, comment, and subscribe for more content like this. If you have more ideas of how we can combat planned obsolescence, there's not a lot of answers. I looked it up for a while, couldn't find much. So if you have that, please drop that in the comment section. I'm sure there's a lot of people who would love to know. And as always, I'll see you guys soon.